The underdog, Lily Margrave, smoothed her gloves out on her knee with a nervous gesture and darted a glance at the occupant of the big chair opposite her. She had heard of M. Herc Puo, the well-known investigator, but this was the first time she had seen him in the flesh. The comic, almost ridiculous aspect that he presented disturbed her conception of him. Could this funny little man with the shaped head and the enormous mustaches really do the wonderful things that were claimed for him? His occupation at the moment struck her as particularly childish. He was piling small blocks of colored wood one upon the other, and seemed far more interested in the result than in the story she was telling at her sudden silence. However, he looked sharply across at her. "Mademoiselle, continue. I pray of you. It is not that I do not attend. I attend very carefully. I assure you," he began once more to pile the little blocks of wood one upon the other, while the girl's voice took up the tale again. It was a gruesome tale, a tale of violence and tragedy, but the voice was so calm and unemotional, the recital was so concise, that something of the savor of humanity seemed to have been left out of it. She stopped at last. "I hope," she said anxiously, "that I have made everything clear." Quo nodded his head several times in emphatic assent. Then he swept his hand across the wooden blocks, scattering them over the table, and leaned back in his chair, his fingertips pressed together and his eyes on the ceiling. He began to recapitulate. Sir Reuben Aswell was murdered 10 days ago, on Wednesday, the day before yesterday. His nephew Charles Lawn was arrested by the police. The facts against him, as far as you know, are, you will correct me if I am wrong, Mel Sir Reuben was sitting up late, writing his own special sanctum, the tower room. Mr. Leveron came in late, letting himself in with a latchkey. He was overheard quarreling with his uncle by the butler, whose room is directly below the tower room. The quarrel ended with a sudden thud, as of a chair being thrown over, and a half-smothered cry. The butler was alarmed, and thought of getting up to see what was the matter, but there's a few seconds later, he heard Mr. Leveron leave the room, gay whistling at Dune. He thought nothing more of it. On the following morning, however, a housemaid discovered Sir Reuben dead by his desk. He had been struck down by some heavy instrument. The butler, I gather, did not at once tell his story to the police. Well, that was natural, I think. The sudden question made Lily Margrave start. "I beg a pardon," she said. "One looks for humanity in these matters. Do one?" "Not," said the little man, "as you recited the story to me, so admirably, so concisely, you made of the actors, in the drama machines, puppets. But me, I always look for human nature. I say to myself, this butler, what did you say? His name is Parsons. This Parsons. Then he will have the characteristics of his class. He will object very strongly to the police. He will tell them as little as possible. Above all, he will say nothing that might seem to incriminate a member of the household, a housebreaker, a burglar. He will cling to that idea with all the strength of extreme obstinacy. Yes, the loyalties of the Sand class are an interesting study." He leaned back, beaming in. "The meantime," he went on, "everyone in the household has told his or her tale, Mr. Lawn among the rest, and his tale was that he had come in late and gone up to bed without seeing his uncle. Well, that is what he said, and no one saw a reason to doubt that tale," mused Poirot, "except, of course, Parsons. Then there comes down an inspector from Scotland Yard. Inspector Miller, you said, did you not? I know him. I have come across him once or twice in the past. He is what they call the sharp man, the ferret, the weasel. Yes, I know him, and the sharp Inspector Miller. He sees what the local inspector has not seen, that Parson is ill at ease and uncomfortable, and knows something that he has not told. He makes short work of Parsons by now. It has been clearly proved that no one broke into the house that night, that the murderer must be looked for inside the house and not outside, and Parsons is unhappy and frightened, and feels very relieved to have his secret knowledge drawn out of him. He has done his best to avoid scandal, but there are limits, and so Inspector Miller listens to Parsons' story and asks a question or two, and then makes some private investigations of his own. The case he builds up is very strong. Blood-stained fingers rested on the corner of the chest in the tower room, and the fingerprints were those of Charles Leveron. The housemaid told him she emptied a basin of blood-stained water in Mr. Lawn's room the morning after the crime. He explained to her that he had cut his finger, and he had a little cut there. Oh yes, but such a very little cut. The cut cuff of his evening shirt had been washed, but they found bloodstains in the sleeve of his coat. He was hard-pressed for money, and he inherited money at Sister Reuben's death. Oh yes, a very strong case, Mel. He paused, and yet you come to me today. Lily Margrave shrugged her slender shoulders. As I told you, Memoro lady, Aswell sent me. You would not have come of your own accord, huh? The little man glanced at her shrewdly. The girl did not answer. You do not reply to my question. Lily Margrave began smoothing her gloves again. It's rather difficult for me, Mr. Porro. I have my loyalty to Lady Aswell to consider, strictly speaking. I am only her paid companion, but she has treated me more as though I were a daughter or a niece. She has been extraordinarily kind, and whatever her faults, I should not like to appear to criticize her actions, or to prejudice you against taking up the case. Impossible to prejudice, declared the little man cheerily. I perceive that you think Lady Astwell has in her bonnet the buzzing bee come now, is it not so? If I must speak myself, I think the whole thing is simply silly. It strikes you like that, huh? I don't want to say anything against Lady Aswell, I comprehend, murmured P.O.O. gently. I comprehend perfectly. His eyes invited her to go on. She really is a very good sort, and frightfully kind, but she isn't, how can I put it? She isn't an educated woman. You know, she was an actress when Sir Reuben married her, and she has all sorts of prejudices and superstitions. If she says a thing, it must be so, and she simply won't listen to reason. The inspector was not very tactful with her, and it put her back up. She says it is nonsense to suspect Mr. Leverin, and just the sort of stupid, pig-headed mistake the police would make. And that, of course, dear Charles did not do it, but she has no reason. None. Whatever is that? So really, now, I told her, said Lily, that it would be no good coming to you with a mere statement like that, and nothing to go on. You told her that, said Porro, did you really? That is interesting. His eyes swept over Lily Margrave in a quick, comprehensive survey, taking in the details of her neat black suit, the touch of white at her throat, and the smart little black hat. He saw the elegance of her, the pretty face with its slightly pointed chin, and the dark blue, long-lashed eyes. Insensibly his attitude changed. He was interested now, not so much in the case, as in the girl sitting opposite him. Lady Asel is, I should imagine, Miss Sell, just a trifle inclined to be unbalanced and hysterical. Lily Margrave nodded eagerly. That describes her exactly. She is, as I told you, very kind, but it's impossible to argue with her, or make her see things logically. Possibly she suspects someone, on her own account, suggested P.U.O., someone quite absurd. That is exactly what she does do, cried Lily. She has taken a great dislike to Sir Reuben's secretary, poor man. She says she knows he did it, and yet it has been proved quite conclusively that poor Owen Truce cannot possibly have done it, and she has no reasons. Of course not. It is all intuition with her. Lily Margrave's voice was very scornful. I perceive, Mel said. P.U.O., smiling, that you do not believe in intuition. I think it is nonsense, replied. Lily Quo leaned back in his chair. Liam, he murmured, they like to think that it is a special weapon that the good God has given them, and for every once that it shows them the truth, at least 9 times, it leads them. ASR, I know, said Lily, but I have told you what Lady Aswell is like. You simply cannot argue with her. So you, Miss Sell, being wise and discreet, come along to me, as you were bidden, and have managed to put me of the situation. Something in the tone of his voice made the girl look up sharply. Well, of course I know, said Lily apologetically. How very valuable your time is. You are too flattering. Mel, said Porro. But indeed, yes, it is true. At this present time, I have many cases of moment on hand. I was afraid it might be so said. Lily, rising, I will tell Lady Aswell. But Porro did not also rise. Instead, he lay back in his chair and looked steadily up at the girl. You are in haste to be gone. Manel, sit down. One more little moment, I pray of you. He saw the color flood into her face and eat out again. She sat down once more, slowly and unwillingly. Michel is quick and decisive. Said Pooh, she must make allowances for an old man like myself, who comes to his decisions slowly. You mistook me. Mademoiselle, I did not say that I would not go down to Lady Hazel. You will come. Then the girl's tone was flat. She did not look at Pooh, but down at the ground, and so was unaware of the keen scrutiny with which he regarded her. Tell Lady Aswell Mell that I am entirely at her service. I will be at Morrow. Is it not this afternoon? He rose. The girl followed suit. I will tell her. It's very good of you to come, Mr. P.U.O. I'm afraid, though, you will find you have been brought on a wild goose chase, very likely. But who knows? He saw her out, with punctilious courtesy, to the door. Then he returned to the sitting room, frowning deep in thought, once or twice. He nodded his head. Then he opened the door, and called to his valet, My good George, prepare me, I pray of you, a little valise. I go down to the country this afternoon. Very good, sir, said George. He was an extremely English-looking person, tall, cadaverous, and unemotional. A young girl is a very interesting phenomenon. George said P.U.O. as he dropped once more into his armchair and lighted a tiny cigarette. Especially, you understand, when she has brains to ask someone to do a thing and at the same time to put them against doing it. That is a delicate operation. It requires finesse. She was very adroit. Oh, very adroit. But my dear George is of a cleverness quite exceptional. I have heard you say so, sir. It is not the secretary she has in mind, mused bureau lady Estelle's accusation of him. She treats with contempt, just the same. She is anxious that no one should disturb the sleeping dogs. My good George, I go to disturb them. I go to make the dog fight. There is a drama there at Morrow, a human drama, and it excites me. She was adrit, the little one, but not adroit enough. I wonder what I shall find there. Into the dramatic pause which succeeded these words, George's voice broke, apologetically. Shall I pack dress clothes? Sir Quo looked at him sadly. Always the concentration, the attention to your own job. You are very good for me, George. When the 4:55 drew up at Abbott's Cross Station, there descended from it Mr. Hercule, P.U.O., very neatly, and L. attired his mustaches, waxed to a stiff point. He gave up his ticket, passed through the barrier, and was accosted by a tall chauffeur, M.P.U.O. The little man beamed upon him. That is my name. This way, sir, if you please. He held open the door of the big Rolls-Royce. The house was 3 minutes from the station. The chauffeur descended once more and opened the door of the car, and P.U.O. stepped out. The butler was already holding the front door open. P.U.O. gave the outside of the house a swift, appraising glance before passing through the open door. It was a big, solidly built, red brick mansion with no pretensions to beauty, but with an air of solid comfort. Pooh stepped into the hall. The butler relieved him deftly of his hat and overcoat, then murmured with that deferential undertone only to be achieved by the best servants, The ladyship is expecting your Sir Quo, followed the butler up the soft carpeted stairs. This, without doubt, was Parsons, a very well-trained servant, with a manner suitably devoid of emotion. At the top of the staircase he turned to the right. Along a corridor he passed through a door into a little anteroom from which 2 more doors LED. He threw open the left-hand one of these and announced, Miss Poe, my lady. The room was not a very large one, and it was crowded in with furniture and knickknacks. A woman dressed in black got up from the sofa and came quickly towards P.U.O.M.P.U.O., she said with an outstretched hand. Her eye ran rapidly over the dandified figure. She paused a minute, ignoring the little man's bow over her hand and his murmured madam, and then releasing his hand after a sudden vigorous pressure, she exclaimed, I believe in small men. They are the clever ones. Inspector Miller murmured, P.U.O. is, I think, a tall man. He's a bumptious idiot, said Lady Aswell. Sit down here by me. Will you miss your Paro? She indicated the sofa and went on. Lily did her best to put me off sending for you, but I have not come to my time of life without knowing my own mind. A rare accomplishment, said Puo, as he followed her to the Saudi lady. Aswell settled herself comfortably among the cushions and turned so as to face him. Lily is a dear girl, said Lady Astwell, but she thinks she knows everything, and as often as not, in my experience, those sort of people are wrong. I am not clever, Miss P.U.O. I never have been, but I am right, where many a more stupid person is wrong. I believe in guidance now. Do you want me to tell you who is the murderer, or do you not? A woman knows. Mr. Parrow does. Miss Margrave, no. Well, what did she tell you? Asked Lady Aswell sharply. She gave me the facts of the case. The facts? Oh, well, of course they are dead against Charles. But I tell you, Mr. P.U.O., he didn't do it. I know he didn't do it. She bent upon him an earnestness that was almost disconcerting. "You are very positive, lady. As well Truce killed my husband, Miss Puo. I am sure of it. Why should he kill him? Do you mean, or why am I sure? I tell you I know it. I am funny about those things. I make up my mind at once, and I stick to it. Did Mr. Trefusis benefit in any way by Sir Reuben's death? Never left him a penny," returned Lady asked. "Well, promptly now. That shows you dear Reuben couldn't have liked or trusted him. Had he been with Sir Reuben? Long, then close on 9 years. That is a long time," said Puo softly. "A very long time to remain in the employment of one man. Yes, Mr. Trews. He must have known his employer well." Lady Aswell stared at him. "What are you driving at? I don't see what that has to do with it." "I was following out a little idea of my own," said Poro. "A little idea, not interesting perhaps, but original on the effect of service." Lady Aswell still stared. "You are very clever, aren't you?" she said in rather a doubtful tone. "Everybody says so." Hero laughed. "Perhaps you shall pay me that compliment, too, madam, one of these days. But let us return to the motive. Tell me now of your household, of the people who were here in the house on the day of the tragedy." "Well, there was Charles, of course. He was your husband's nephew. I understand. Not yours. Yes, Charles was the only son of Reuben's sister. She married a comparatively rich man. But one of those crashes came. They do in the city, and he died, and his wife too, and Charles came to live with us. He was 23 at the time, and going to be a barrister. But when the trouble came, Reuben took him into his office. He was industrious, Charles, like a man who's quick on the uptake," said Lady Aswell, with a nod of approval. "No, that's just the trouble. Charles was not industrious. He was always having rows with his uncle over some model or other that he had made. Not that poor Reuben was an easy man to get on with. Many is the time I've told him he had forgotten what it was to be young himself. He was very different in those days." Mr. Parrow, Lady Aswell heaved a sigh of reminiscence. "Changes must come," Madam said. "Puo, it is the law." "Still," said Lady Aswell, "he was never really rude to me. At least, if he was always sorry afterwards. Poor dear Reuben, he was difficult." Said, "Puo, I could always manage him," said Lady Aswell, with the air of a successful lion tamer. "But it was rather awkward sometimes, when he would lose his temper with the servants. There are ways of doing that, and Reuben's was not the right way." "How exactly did Sir Reuben leave his money?" Lady Aswell, "Well, half to me, and half to Charles," replied Lady Aswell promptly. "The lawyers don't put it simply like that, but that's what it amounts to." Quo nodded his head. I see, he murmured. "Now, Lady Aswell, I will demand of you that you will describe to me the household there was, yourself and Sir Reuben's nephew, Mr. Charles Leveran, and the secretary, Mr. Owent Trefusis. And there was Miss Lily Margrave. Perhaps you will tell me something of that young lady. You want to know about Lily. Yes, she had been with you long, about a year. I've had a lot of secretary companions, you know, but somehow or other they all got on my nerves. Lily was different. She was tactful, full of common sense, and besides, she looks so nice. I do like to have a pretty face about me. Parrow. I'm a funny kind of person. I take likes and dislikes straight away. As soon as I saw that girl, I said to myself, she'll do. Did she come to you through friends? Lady Asel, I think she answered an advertisement. Yes, that was it. You know, something of her people, of where she comes from. Her father and mother are out in India. I believe I didn't really know much about them, but you can see at a glance that Lily is a lady. Can't you me so? Oh, perfectly. Of course, went on Lady Astwell. I am not a lady myself. I know it, and the servants know it, but there is nothing mean-spirited about me. I can appreciate the real thing when I see it, and no one could be nicer than Lily has been to me. I look upon that girl almost as a daughter. Miss Puo, indeed I do. Pooh's right hand, straight out and straightened one or two of the objects lying on a table near him. Did Sir Reuben
Share this feeling, he asked. His eyes were on the knickknacks. But doubtless he noted the pause before Lady Atwell's answer came with a man. It's different. Of course, they got on very well. Thank you, Madame, said Puo. He was smiling to himself, and these were the only people in the house that night, he asked, except, of course, the servants. Oh, there was Victor, yes, my husband's brother, and his partner, he lived with you. No, he had just arrived on a visit. He's been out in West Africa for the past few years. West Africa, murmured Puo. He had learned that Lady Aswell could be trusted to develop a subject herself if sufficient time was given her. They say it's a wonderful country, but I think it's the kind of place that has a very bad effect. Upon a man, they drink too much and they get uncontrolled. None of the Aswells has a good temper, and Victor's, since he came back from Africa, has been simply too shocking. He has frightened me once or twice. Did he frighten Miss Margrave? I wonder, murmured Puo gently. Lily? I don't think he's seen much of Lily. Puo made a note or two in his diminutive notebook, then he put the pencil back in its loop and returned the notebook to his pocket. I thank you, lady. I will now, if I may interview person. Will you have him up here? Lady Estelle's hand moved towards the bell. Puo arrested the gesture quickly. No, 1,000 times no. I will dissent to him. But if you think it's better, Lady Aswell was clearly disappointed at not being able to participate in the forthcoming scene. Q adopted an air of secrecy. It is essential, he said mysteriously, and left Lady Aswell duly impressed. He found Parsons in the butler's pantry, polishing silver. Pooh opened the proceedings with one of his funny little bows. I must explain myself, he said. I am a detective agent. Yes, sir, said Parsons. We gathered as much. His tone was respectful but aloof. Lady Aswell sent for me, continued Pooh. She is not satisfied. No, she is not satisfied at all. I have heard her ladyship say so on several occasions, said Parsons. In fact, said Puo, I recount to you the things you already know. Let us then not waste time on these bagels. Take me, if you will be so good, to your bedroom and tell me exactly what it was you heard there on the night of the murder. The butler's room was on the ground floor adjoining the servants' hall. It had barred windows, and the strong room was in one corner of it. Parsons indicated the narrow bed. I had retired, sir, at 11. Miss Margrave had gone to bed, and Lady Aswell was with Sir Reuben in the tower room. Lady Aswell was with Sir Reuben. Proceed the tower. Room, sir, is directly over this. If people are talking in it, one can hear the murmur of voices, but naturally not anything that is said. I must have fallen asleep about 11:30. It was just 12 o'clock when I was awakened by the sound of the front door being slammed to, and knew that Mr. Lon had returned presently. I heard footsteps overhead, and a minute or two later Mr. Levon's voice talking to Sir Reuben. It was my fancy at the time, sir, that Mr. Lon was, I should not exactly like to say drunk, but inclined to be a little indiscreet and noisy. He was shouting at his uncle at the top of his voice. I caught a word or two here or there, but not enough to understand what it was all about. Then there was a sharp cry and a heavy thud. There was a pause, and Parsons repeated the last words. A heavy thud, he said impressively. If I mistake it not, it is a dull thud in most works of romance, murmured Puo. Maybe, sir, said Parsons severely. It was a heavy thud that I heard. 1,000 pardons, said Puo. Do not mention it, sir, after the thud in the
Silence. I heard Mr. Lon's voice as plain can be raised. Hi, my God, he said. My God. Just like that. Sir Parsons, from his first reluctance to tell the tale, had now progressed to a thorough enjoyment of it. He fancied himself mightily as a narrator. Quo played up to him. Mon, he murmured, what emotion you must have experienced. Yes, indeed, sir, said Parsons. As you say, sir. Not that I thought very much of it at the time, but it did occur to me to wonder if anything was amiss, and whether I had better go up and see. I
went to turn the electric light on, and was unfortunate enough to knock over a chair. I opened the door, and went through the servants' hall, and opened the other door, which gives on a passage. The back stairs lead up from there, and as I stood at the bottom of them, hesitating, I heard Mr. Lon's voice from up above, speaking hearty and cherry-like, no harm done. Luckily, he says good night, and I heard him move off along the passage to his own room, whistling. Of course I went back to bed at once, just something knocked over. That's all I thought it was. I ask you, sir, was I to think Sir Reuben was murdered with Mr. Lon saying good night, and all you are sure it was Mr. Lon's voice you heard? Parsons looked at the little Belgian pityingly, and Puo saw clearly enough that, right or wrong, Parsons' mind was made up on this point. Is there anything further you would like to ask me, sir? There is one thing. Said Puo, do you like Mr. Leveron? I beg your pardon, sir. It is a simple question. Do you like Mr. Leveron Passons from being startled at? First now seemed embarrassed, the general opinion in the servants' hall. Sir, he said, and paused by all means, said, P.O. put it that way. If it pleases you, the opinion is, sir, that Mr. Lon is an open-handed young gentleman, but not, if I may say so, particularly intelligent, sir. Said, P.O., do you know, Parsons, that without having seen him, that is also precisely my opinion of Mr. Lon. Indeed, sir. What is your opinion? I beg your pardon. The opinion of the servants' hall of the secretary. He is a very quiet, patient gentleman, sir, anxious to give no trouble. More, said P.U.O. The butler coughed, her ladyship, sir. He murmured is apt to be a little hasty in her judgments. Then, in the opinion of the servants, Hall, Mr. Leveron committed the crime we, none of us, wished to think it was, Mr. Leveron said, Parsons. Well, plainly, we didn't think he had it in him, sir. But he has a somewhat violent temper, has he not? Asked Pero. Parsons came nearer to him, if you asking me who had the most violent temper in this house, Quo held up a hand. But that is not the question I should ask, he said softly.
My question would be, who has the best temper? Harson stared at him, open-mouthed. Pooh wasted no further time on him, with an amiable little bow. He was always amiable. He left the room and wandered out into the big, square hall of Morro. There he stood a minute or two in thought, then, at a slight sound that came to him, cocked his head to one side in the manner of a perky robin, and finally, with noiseless steps, crossed to one of the doors that led out of the hall. He stood in the doorway, looking into the room, a small room furnished as a library. At a big desk, at the farther end of it, sat a thin, pale young man, busily writing. He had a receding chin and wore pince-nez. Quo watched him for some minutes, and then he broke the silence by giving a completely artificial and theatrical coughed. Miss Heru, P.U.O. The young man at the desk stopped writing and turned his head. He did not appear unduly startled, but an expression of perplexity gathered on his face as he eyed Poole. The latter came forward with a little bow. I have the honor of speaking to M. Trefusis. Yes, my name is Poole. Poole, you may perhaps have heard of me. Oh, yes, certainly, said the young man. Pooh eyed him attentively. Owen Truis was about 33 years of age, and the detective saw at once why nobody was inclined to treat Lady Astill's accusation seriously. Mr. O. Inuus was a prim, proper young man, disarmingly meek, the type of man who can be and is systematically bullied. One could feel quite sure that he would never display resentment. Oh, Lady Astwell sent for you. Of course, said the secretary. She mentioned that she was going to do so. Is there any way in which I can help you? His manner was polite without being effusive. Pugh accepted a chair and murmured gently, Has Lady Aswell said anything to you of her beliefs and suspicions? Oh, Inuus smiled a little as far as that goes. He said, I believe she suspects me. It is absurd, but there it is. She has hardly spoken a civil word to me since Sir Reuben's death, and she shrinks against the wall as I pass by. His manner was perfectly natural, and there was more amusement than resentment in his voice. Quo nodded with an air of engaging frankness. Between ourselves, he explained, she said the same thing to me. I did not argue with her. I have made it a rule never to argue with very positive ladies. You comprehend? It is a waste of time. Oh, quite. I say yes, madam. Oh, perfectly. Madam Pressy. Madam. They mean nothing, those words, but they soothe all the same. I make my investigations though it seems almost impossible that anyone except Miss Elson could have committed the crime. Yet, well, the impossible has happened before now. I understand your position perfectly, said the secretary. Please regard me as entirely at your service. B, said Pooh, we understand one another. Now recount to me the events of that evening. Better start with dinner. Lon was not at dinner, as you doubtless know, said the secretary. He had a serious disagreement with his uncle and went off to dine at the golf club. Sir Reuben was in a very bad temper, in consequence. Not too amiable, S.H. hinted. P.U.O. delicately. Truce laughed. Oh, he was a Tartar. I haven't worked with him for 9 years, without knowing most of his little ways. He was an extraordinarily difficult man, M.P.U.O. He would get into childish fits of rage and abuse anybody who came near him. I was used to it by that time. I got into the habit of paying absolutely no attention to anything. He said he was not bad-hearted, really, but he could be most foolish and exasperating in his manner. The great thing was never to answer him back. Were other people as wise as you were in that respect? Truce shrugged his shoulders. Lady Aswell enjoyed a good row. He said she was not in the least afraid of Sir Reuben, and she always stood up to him and gave him as good as she got. They always made it up afterwards, and Sir Reuben was really devoted to her. Did they quarrel that night? The secretary looked at him sideways. He hesitated a minute, then he said, "Well, I believe so. What made you ask? An idea? That is all." "Well, I don't know, of course," explained the secretary, but things looked as though they were working up that way. Pooh did not pursue the topic. Who else was at dinner? Miss Margrave, Mr. Victor, Aswell, and myself, and afterwards we went into the drawing-room. Sir Reuben did not accompany us. About 10 minutes later, he came in and hauled me over the coals for some trifling matter. About a letter, I went up with him to the tower room and set the thing straight. Then Mr. Victor Aswell came in and said he had something he wished to talk to his brother about. So I went downstairs and joined the two ladies. About a quarter of an hour later, I heard Sir Reuben's bell ringing violently, and Parsons came to say I was to go up to Sir Reuben at once. As I entered the room, Mr. Victor Aswell was coming out. He nearly knocked me over. Something had ever happened to upset him. He has a very violent temper. I really believe he didn't see me. Did S. Reuben make any comment on the matter? He said Victor is a lunatic. He will do for somebody some day when he is in one of these rages. Ah, said P.U.O., have you any idea what the trouble was about? I couldn't say at all. Pooh turned his head very slowly and looked at the secretary. These last words had been uttered too hastily. He formed the conviction that Rousseau could have said more, had he wished to do so. But once again, P.U.O. did not press the question, and then proceed. I pray of you, I worked with Sir Reuben for about an hour and a half at 11 o'clock. Lady Aswell came in, and Sir Reuben told me I could go to bed, and you went. Yes, have you any idea how long she stayed with him? None at all. Her room is on the first floor, and mine is on the second, so I would not hear her go to bed. I see Quoo nodded his head once or twice, and sprang to his feet, and now Muir. Take me to the tower room. He followed the secretary up the broad stairs to the first landing. Here Truce led him along the corridor and through a baize door at the end of it, which gave on the servants' staircase, and on a short passage that ended in a door. They passed through this door and found themselves at the scene of the crime. It was a lofty room, twice as high as any of the others, and was roughly about 30 feet square. Swords and assegai adorned the walls, and many native curios were arranged about on tables at the far end. In the embrasure of the window was a large writing table, crossed straight to it. It was here Sir Reuben was found. Truces nodded. He was struck from behind. I understand. Again the secretary nodded. The crime was committed with one of those native clubs. He explained, a tremendously heavy thing. Death must have been practically instantaneous. That strengthens the conviction that the crime was not premeditated. A sharp quarrel and a weapon snatched up, almost unconsciously. Yes, it does not look well for poor old Leveron. And the body was found, fallen forward on the desk. No, it had slipped sideways to the ground. Ah, said P.U.O., that is curious. Why? Curious, asked the secretary. Because of this. Quo pointed to a round, irregular stain on the polished surface of the writing table. That is, a blood-stained one. It may have spattered, there suggested Truce, or it may have been later, when they moved the body, very possibly, said the little man. There is only the one door to this room, there is a staircase here. Truce pulled aside a velvet curtain in the corner of the room, nearest the door, where a small spiral staircase, LED upwards. This place was originally built by an astronomer. The stairs led up to the tower, where the telescope was fixed. Sister Reuben had the place fitted up as a bedroom, and sometimes slept there. If he was working very late, Quo went nimbly up the stairs. The circular room upstairs was plainly furnished with a camp bed, a chair, and the dressing table. Quo satisfied himself that there was no other exit, and then came down again to where Truce stood waiting for him. Did you hear Mr. Leveron come in? He asked. Truce shook his head. I was fast asleep by that time. P.U.O. nodded. He looked slowly around the room. Ian, he said, at last, I do not think there is anything further here, unless perhaps you would be so kind as to draw the curtains obediently. Drusus pulled the heavy black curtains across the window at the far end of the room. Puo switched on the light, which was masked by a big alabaster bowl hanging from the ceiling. There was a desk light. He asked for a reply. The secretary clicked on a powerful green-shaded hand lamp, which stood on the writing table. Poro switched the other light off, then on, then off again. Sian, I have finished here. The dinner is at 7:30, murmured the secretary. I thank you, M. Trefusis, for your many abilities. Not at all. Puo went thoughtfully along the corridor to the room appointed for him. The inscrutable George was there, laying out his master's things. My good George,